You're listening to the Drummer Daily Podcast, the only daily podcast dedicated just to drummers. Go to my website at danielhadaway.com. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Drummer Daily. It is kind of thundering and gloomy outside, so you might hear some of that in the background. There is not a construction crew building anything next to my house, and no, the roof did not fall in. It is just thunder. So, hope you're doing well. You'll hear me talking a little quiet. It's because my son is napping one floor above me right now, and I don't think that it matters. I don't think I'd wake him up, but you never know. Why not take it easy? Why not play it safe? But we're not here to talk about playing it safe today. We're actually talking about the opposite. So when I bring up, it's funny because I never, until I started doing this podcast, I never really realized how much things I learned in high school, as far as drumming goes, I never realized how much that stuff affected me and how much of that I carried with me until I started doing this podcast. And I realized a lot of times I have these ideas in my head about playing drums, and I always just think about them. But then I never, until I start recording these podcasts, I never really think to explain or think about where they came from. And so when I did this podcast, I started talking about where they came from, and I realized, man, that came from high school, and so did that, and so did that. And eventually it's like, man, did I learn anything after high school? And I'm definitely not like Uncle Rico. Like, I'm not like obsessed with high school. I didn't think it was like my glory days, but I learned a lot as far as drumming goes. And I'm very grateful for that. And hey, that's not a bad thing to have, right? Something that you're grateful for that you learned. Anyway, something else I learned in high school. And this, I mentioned, I think a few episodes ago about how I was in the pit and marching band, and that was the always repeat your mistakes episode, because the judges don't know that you're that they don't have the sheet music in front of them to know whether or not you're playing what you're supposed to. So if you're the only one doing it, you can kind of do whatever. As long as you repeat it, look like you meant to do it, you're fine. So in those same time period, other songs in our repertoire for marching band that same year, that my freshman year, that I was playing in the pit and marching band in the front. I wasn't always playing a giant gong. I was playing some xylophone and some marimba, and I think there was a shaker at one point that I had to play, all kinds of stuff. And as far as like showmanship goes, one thing that we were taught was, from the audience perspective, if you can't see it, you can't hear it. And what that means is the little nuanced, quiet shaker part that I was playing in the middle of a giant football field where people were talking and not really paying attention while I'm playing, and there's a massive 150 member band behind me blowing loud noise. If I wasn't holding up that shaker or making sure people could see that I was playing it, the nuance and the quiet parts of it weren't going to be perceived. People weren't going to, exactly what I said. People, if they couldn't see it, they couldn't hear it. And so it was always exaggerate your movements, always make it obvious that you're playing this thing. Hey, look at this, I'm playing this thing, here it is. Now, this actually is not about doing that on the drums. I understand that many of you who listen are church drummers or worship drummers, and I certainly would not suggest adopting the if you can't see it, you can't hear it mentality on the drums in church. I've seen drummers who do that, and that might just be the worst thing ever. So I'm not suggesting that, but there's another side of that, and basically I think what that point of if you can't see it, you can't hear it, what that actually gets at is the concept of what people see actually affects how they hear the music that you're playing. So what I'm trying to say is this: how you look when you play the drums actually affects what people are hearing from you. And let me give you an example. There are many drummers that I've experienced, especially because I've seen a lot of other drummers play. It's actually interesting, not just at shows, but like more, I'm older. I don't go to a bunch of shows at clubs anymore or anything like that like I used to. But When I travel with the band, with All Sons and Daughters, I do, we have in the past played a lot of conferences or a lot of festivals. And so I get a chance to see a lot of drummers. And especially when I play conferences or like church events, and there's other like local bands, like non-professional bands playing, I'll notice the drummers, and I'll notice that they, like I might be in the back of the room, like, we might show up, we come in and the whole event's already going on, so we come in the back, of the stage or whatever, and we can hear the music playing, but we can't see it because we're behind the stage or whatever. We kind of get in and we get settled, and then the thing's still going on, and we've got a long time to wait till we sound check or play or whatever. So I might walk out and go kind of see what's going on with the music out front. So I'll go out front, and while I'm listening, before I get out there, I'll hear the music and I'll be like, man, that, drummer sounds pretty solid, sounds great, feels great. And then the second I walk out into the room and see the drummer, I'm like, oh no, what happened? That feels terrible. It sounds terrible. Like the feel isn't great. And what's weird is I close my eyes and I'm like, no, that's it sounds fine. But then I look at the person and it feels terrible. And what I realize is that their posture on the drums is really tense or uptight. Their drums are set up in a way where they don't seem relaxed and don't look comfortable playing. And it affects my perception of how the music feels. The person looks uncomfortable, and in my mind, it makes me uncomfortable, even if they sound fine. And I'm obviously not saying that, especially church drumming is a show, but the whole point of like church drumming, worship drumming, is to not be a distraction, is to facilitate other people singing, the people that are sitting in the audience, people sitting out front in the congregation, facilitate them singing the songs without distraction and expressing the songs. So, but there's a drummer on stage still as a part of that, and so so you're going to be looking at that musician at some point if you're in the congregation or you're in the audience, and the way that you look playing certainly affects how people feel when they're taking part in that music. And so I don't really have a specific tip for you to relax, how to relax, but I would just say think about how you look when you play drums. I would say everyone's got an iPhone or an Android phone, like a smartphone now. Just set up a video, set it up, prop it up on a coffee mug or something if you have to, or if you have a little tripod, you can do that. But set up a way of recording yourself playing drums on video. And it doesn't matter if it sounds terrible, because you're not going to listen to it. You're just going to look at it and think about, man, I look really uncomfortable when I do that. I should probably work on that because it affects my audience. It affects the people who are listening to the music. So I would just encourage you to think about how you look when you play the drums, not from a style perspective, but just from a relaxation perspective. And a good example of someone that personally for me, it's hard for me to watch them play, but they feel great as a drummer, and this is his style, is the drummer for the Black Keys. He looks, when I see him play, he looks, especially on the hi-hat, he looks really uncomfortable, but then when you hear it, it sounds great. It sounds fine. And so like I've watched him on TV, like Austin City Limits and stuff. And I just learned that like, it actually makes me feel an edge. I can't ever calm my mind down enough to enjoy the music because I'm always distracted by it. And maybe it's just my pet peeve and that's all it is. But that's a good example. You're looking for someone who, by watching them, they change the perception of how they're playing. You should find a video of them playing on YouTube and see how his playing might affect, or the way he looks when he plays might affect your perception of how he sounds. So that's my tip for today. Try to look more relaxed when you play the drums. You might be pleased with how it goes. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.